One message that changed everything. One reply in a private group chat may have changed a young man's entire future. According to the allegations laid out in the source narrative, what began as tension over a recording contract eventually became a federal case involving Pooh Shiesty, Gucci Mane, a Dallas recording studio, an alleged armed confrontation, and a young Memphis associate known as Baby Slime. And prosecutors say the digital trail started before anyone ever stepped inside that room. The story centers on a Signal group chat investigators allegedly recovered from Pooh Shiesty's phone. In that chat, the source says Pooh was operating under the alias Michael Myers when a message went out looking for people willing to make the trip to Dallas. The prosecution's version claims Baby Slime responded immediately before anyone else, and that single response later became part of the government's argument that he understood what was being planned and willingly joined it. But a message alone would not become the biggest problem. According to the case narrative, investigators later assembled multiple categories of evidence: group chat message, cooperating witnesses, cell phone footage from inside the studio, photographs, social media posts, firearm-related material, and financial messages, allegedly connecting participants to the operation. Baby Slime is presumed innocent, and none of those allegations should be treated as proven unless established through the legal process. But the way the government reportedly stacked one piece on top of another is what makes this story so serious. And behind all of it was a dispute that, under normal circumstances, would have been handled through lawyers. Pooh Shiesty's relationship with Gucci Mane's 2017 records. Instead, prosecutors allege the disagreement reached a Dallas studio in January 2026, where Gucci Mane believed he was walking into a business meeting. What the government claims was waiting inside was something completely different. That is where this story stops being about a group chat and becomes about the people allegedly standing inside a soundproof room with everything on the line. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or state in the comments. If you think one impulsive decision can destroy years of opportunity, come on. If you think loyalty becomes dangerous when it demands blind risk, come on, dude. And subscribe to the channel. Because next, we are breaking down exactly who Baby Slime is and why prosecutors focus so heavily on the fact that he allegedly answered first, who is Baby Slime, before the Dallas studio, before the federal case, and before the internet started calling him the man who took the biggest risk. Baby Slime was known inside Pooh Shiesty's orbit as a young Memphis associate whose reputation was built around loyalty. The source identifies him as Corday Johnson and says court filings described him as connected to Memphis street groups, but the nickname that would eventually dominate the conversation was something else: Crash Dummy. That phrase sounds like internet slang until you understand what it represents in this story. A crash dummy is the person expected to move first, accept the most exposure, and take risks that could leave him carrying consequences long after everybody else disappears. It does not prove criminal behavior by itself. It describes the role that the source narrative and online commentary attached to Baby Slime, and prosecutors allegedly found one moment that fit that image almost perfectly. According to the source, Pooh Shiesty sent a message into a Signal group chat requesting people for a trip to Dallas. Baby Slime allegedly responded before everyone else. Federal filings cited in the source reportedly focused on what they characterized as his eagerness, using that early response as part of a broader argument about willingness and intent. One message does not prove an entire conspiracy. Context matters. And Baby Slime has the right to challenge what prosecutors say that response meant. But the government's theory becomes more serious when that message is placed beside what allegedly happened afterward, because he did not simply remain inside a group chat. The source claims he traveled from Memphis to Dallas with the others. Investigators would later say witnesses placed him inside the studio. Video evidence was allegedly recovered. Photographs and social media activity would become part of the case. And months later, prosecutors would argue that all those separate pieces formed one continuous trail. That is why the first response matters so much to the narrative. It creates a beginning, and according to the government's version, that beginning came from a Signal account connected to Pooh Shiesty, under a name that made the conversation even more unsettling: Michael Myers. Chapter 3: The Michael Myers Signal Chat. The federal case described in the source does not begin with a weapon being pulled inside a studio. It begins with digital communication. According to the narrative, investigators extracted signal messages from a phone associated with Pooh Shiesty and discovered that one contact identity being used in the conversation was Michael Myers. The reference immediately caught attention because of the fictional horror character attached to that name. But the alias itself does not prove criminal intent. What prosecutors reportedly care about is what they believe the messages reveal about planning. The source says, a message went out requesting several people and drivers for a Saturday trip to Dallas. Prosecutors interpreted the language as recruitment for an operation targeting Gucci Mane. Baby Slime allegedly answered first. That timing became important. From the government's perspective, an immediate response can be argued as evidence that a person was not accidentally swept into events at the last minute. The prosecution narrative attempts to show planning, agreement, travel, and participation as separate steps in the same chain. The defense, however, would have the right to challenge that interpretation. A message must still be placed in context. Investigators must establish who was actually operating an account, what the language meant, and whether a participant understood the full purpose of a trip. But then came the travel. According to the source, the group moved from Memphis toward Dallas, where Gucci Mane and members of his team expected a meeting concerning Pooh Shiesty's relationship with 1017 Records. Tension over the contract allegedly involved money, creative control, and the broader terms of the recording arrangement. Label disputes are hardly unusual in hip-hop. Artists fight over masters. They argue about royalties. They demand releases. Lawyers negotiate. Lawsuits get filed. What prosecutors allege happened here was radically different. The government's version says the people traveling to Texas were not simply going to support Pooh Shiesty during a tense business discussion. Prosecutors portray the journey as part of a coordinated plan involving multiple participants. If that version is correct, then the signal chat was not random conversation. It was allegedly the blueprint. And on January 10, 2026, according to the source narrative, the people connected to that chat reached the place where investigators say the plan became reality. A recording studio in Dallas. Chapter 4. The Dallas studio meeting turns dark. Gucci Mane allegedly entered the Dallas studio, believing he was there for business. According to the source narrative, the issue at the center of the meeting was Pooh Shiesty's 1017 Records agreement. Pooh had reportedly become frustrated with aspects of the relationship, and the meeting was supposed to address those tensions. Then prosecutors say the atmosphere changed. The source claims Pooh Shiesty produced paperwork related to ending the recording agreement and demanded that Gucci Mane sign it. According to the government's version, Gucci refused. That refusal allegedly transformed what appeared to be a contract discussion into something far more serious. Prosecutors allege firearms were produced inside the room. The source identifies Big 30, whose legal name it gives as Rodney Wright Jr., as another alleged participant, and says he retrieved a bag containing an AK-style firearm that was handed toward Pooh Shiesty. Other members of the group allegedly displayed weapons as well. From that point forward, the government describes the room not as a negotiation, but as a scene of coercion. Victims were allegedly prevented from leaving. One person was reportedly forced onto a couch, while another was allegedly restrained from behind. Prosecutors claim the objective was to force Gucci Mane to sign termination paperwork, while everyone inside understood that resistance could carry consequences. These remain allegations. The defendants are entitled to contest eyewitness testimony, video interpretation, account identification, and every other element the government presents, but prosecutors claim Baby Slime occupied one of the most exposed positions in the entire room. 5 cooperating witnesses cited in the source allegedly identified him as an armed participant, responsible for helping control the people inside. The government's version does not place him outside, waiting in a vehicle, or standing in a hallway unaware of what was happening. It allegedly places him inside the soundproof room, with a weapon, and if eyewitness testimony had been the only thing investigators possessed, the defense would have multiple traditional ways to challenge memory, perception, bias, and identification, but according to the source, someone inside the studio was recording, and that cell phone footage would become one of the most important pieces of the entire case. Chapter 5. The room, the guns, and the video. Witness testimony can be powerful, but it can also be attacked. People remember events differently. Stress affects perception. Angles matter. Bias matters. That is why the next part of the prosecution narrative carries so much weight. According to the source, investigators recovered cell phone footage allegedly recorded inside the Dallas studio. Prosecutors claim that video shows Baby Slime inside the soundproof room holding an AK-style weapon in Gucci Mane's direction, while the disputed contract paperwork was being handled. If the footage shows what prosecutors say it showed, it could significantly strengthen their case because it would potentially corroborate the eyewitness accounts with visual evidence. But even video must still be interpreted. The defense can question identity, timing, context. What happened before recording began? What happened after it ended? And whether the footage proves each specific element. Prosecutors must establish beyond a reasonable doubt. That legal distinction is important because social media often treats a short clip like a complete verdict. A courtroom cannot steal. The source describes 5 cooperating witnesses who allegedly placed Baby Slime in the room in addition to the claimed video. Prosecutors, therefore, are not relying on only one category of evidence. Their strategy appears to be accumulation. Testimony plus footage, plus messages, plus later digital material. And that accumulation is what makes Baby Slime's alleged position so consequential. The source narrative describes him as someone keeping control of the room, while Pooh Shiesty allegedly pressured Gucci Mane over the contract. That image also explains why the crash dummy label became attached so strongly to his name. The person standing with the weapon becomes the person most visible when investigators start reconstructing the event. Then the story moved beyond the contract. According to prosecutors, approximately $450, 0 inches cash and property, was also taken from Gucci Mane and others inside the studio. The source mentions jewelry, watches, cash, and other valuables. If that allegation were all investigators had, tracing the property could have become difficult. But according to the source, some people connected to the incident allegedly made a decision that gave investigators another opening. They went online, and items prosecutors believe came from the studio allegedly began appearing on social media. Chapter 6. The $450, 000 trail, and the social media mistake. The alleged Dallas incident might have been difficult enough to investigate if everyone involved had disappeared afterward and never discussed it again. The source says that did not happen. Prosecutors allege roughly $450, 0 inches cash, and valuables were taken from Gucci Mane and other individuals inside the studio. The items reportedly included jewelry, watches, cash, and personal property. Investigators then allegedly began comparing those missing items with what appeared online after the incident. According to the source, social media posts showed people displaying jewelry. Investigators believe matched property reported stolen. That matters because high-end jewelry is not always interchangeable. Custom pieces can contain unique design elements. Luxury watches can carry serial numbers. Chains tied to a specific label or artist may be visually distinctive enough to generate investigative leads. The source claims investigators used those details to build another connection between the alleged participants and the property taken in Dallas. If accurate, the irony is difficult to miss. Prosecutors were already said to possess witness statements and video from inside the studio. Then people allegedly connected to the aftermath created additional visual records themselves. That is one of the recurring themes in modern criminal investigations involving social media. The same platform used to build image and reputation can also preserve timestamps, photographs, association, possessions, and behavior. But investigators allegedly uncovered something even more damaging than a jewelry post, a financial message. According to the source, a text recovered from a co-defendant's device mocked members of the crew over what they were allegedly paid for their participation. The amount that became viral was approximately $5, 000 per person. Whether prosecutors can prove that payment represented compensation for criminal activity is ultimately a legal question, but within the government's theory, the message serves a specific purpose: It allegedly connects money to participation. And that number completely changed the emotional meaning of the story. Because the alleged value taken from the studio was hundreds of thousands of dollars, the possible legal exposure was enormous. Yet the source claimed some of the young men accepted only a few $1,000s for baby slime. The government would argue that the person allegedly standing in one of the most exposed positions may have taken one of the largest risks for one of the smallest rewards. That is where the phrase crash dummy stops sounding like a nickname and starts sounding like a warning. Chapter 7. The $5. Zero text. $5,000. That number became one of the most discussed details in the entire source narrative because it creates a contrast almost too extreme to ignore. According to the source, investigators recovered a message indicating that participants in the alleged Dallas operation were paid roughly $5. Each. The message reportedly mocked them for accepting such a small amount relative to the value connected to the larger dispute. For prosecutors, the potential importance goes beyond embarrassment. Money can help establish structure. If the government proves that payments were tied to specific participation, it can argue that involvement was organized rather than accidental. Someone who simply happened to be present is different from someone. Prosecutors can show traveled, participated, and was compensated. The defense can challenge all of that. It can dispute what the money represented, whether every defendant received it, whether the message was accurate, and whether the person writing it had direct knowledge. But as a storytelling detail, the alleged payout is devastating. The source describes a situation in which participants supposedly traveled across state lines, entered a high-risk confrontation, exposed themselves to federal charges, and then allegedly walked away with only a fraction of the value at stake. That is the central tragedy underneath the crash dummy concept. The person closest to the danger may not be the person receiving the greatest benefit. For baby slime, prosecutors reportedly attempt to connect the signal response, the travel, the studio footage, eyewitness testimony, and the alleged financial structure into one narrative of deliberate participation. Then the evidence trail allegedly continues after Dallas. The source says investigators discovered photographs on baby slime's phone involving a wooden foregrip associated with a Draco-style firearm. It also describes an Instagram Live in which he allegedly displayed a handgun fitted with an illegal conversion device. Those allegations could create legal problems, completely separate from what happened inside the studio. Then investigators allegedly found photos involving clothing or a mask they believed was relevant to identifying participants. One clue became another. One device produced another image. One post generated another investigative lead. And by February 2026, according to the source, baby slime's problems were no longer limited to a case being assembled hundreds of miles away in Texas. Law enforcement in Memphis was about to enter the story directly. Chapter 8. From Memphis Post to the raid. After Dallas, the source describes baby slime's digital footprint as continuing to generate attention. Investigators allegedly recovered images they believe connected him to firearm-related evidence. The source also describes an Instagram Live from January 2026 inches, which he allegedly displayed a Glock equipped with a conversion device capable of automatic fire. Possession of such a device can create serious federal exposure, depending on the facts and applicable law. Then came February 18. According to the source narrative, Memphis law enforcement executed a raid at a residence on Bermuda Run, where baby slime and several others were arrested. Officers allegedly recovered rifles, handguns, marijuana, pills, body armor, a digital scale, and other items. The source emphasizes another detail. Baby slime was allegedly found with only several $100s in cash. That number was immediately compared with the much larger amount prosecutors claimed had been taken during the Dallas incident. But that comparison should not be treated as proof of where any alleged proceeds went. Finding a person with $530 months later does not establish how money was distributed, spent, or whether that money was connected to the Dallas allegations at all. What it does provide is a dramatic image. A young man whom prosecutors allege took enormous legal risks was now dealing with another law enforcement encounter, while the federal investigation continued building. The raid added new complications. It also gave investigators more material to examine. while prosecutors in Texas allegedly continued connecting messages, travel, witnesses, video, photographs, and financial evidence. Then April 1 arrived. According to the source, federal agents moved to arrest Baby Slime on the larger case. Prosecutors later alleged that he barricaded himself inside a residence rather than immediately surrendering. Agents reportedly used a tactical drone during the operation. Eventually, he was taken into federal custody. That alleged refusal to surrender became important at the next stage. Because federal detention decisions involve more than the underlying accusation, judges can consider arguments concerning danger to the community, risk of flight, criminal history, the strength of the evidence, and whether proposed release conditions can reasonably protect the process. Baby Slime's defense reportedly proposed release under supervision from family members. The judge said no, and suddenly, the young man who allegedly answered a signal message first was sitting without bond, while prosecutors prepared to put the entire evidence trail in front of a federal court. Chapter 9, FBI arrest, no bond, and the case closing in. By the time Baby Slime reached federal detention, prosecutors were no longer describing a case built around one witness or one phone message. They were presenting a web, according to the source. The signal conversation allegedly places him near the beginning of the planning. His quick response is used by prosecutors to argue willingness. The travel from Memphis to Dallas allegedly places him with the group. Cooperating witnesses claim he was inside the studio. Cell phone footage allegedly shows him armed. Photographs and social media posts are presented as additional connective evidence. Financial messages allegedly point toward compensation. Later, firearm-related material and the Memphis raid add separate layers of legal exposure. And prosecutors reportedly used his alleged barricade during the federal arrest to argue that releasing him would create unacceptable risk. No single item automatically proves guilt. That is exactly why the government appears to have built the case this way. If the defense attacks a witness, prosecutors still point toward video. If the video is challenged for context, they still have messages. If a message is ambiguous, they point toward travel and alleged conduct. The strategy is not to depend on one perfect piece of evidence, but to argue that multiple independent categories reinforce one another. The defense gets its own opportunity. Baby Slime remains presumed innocent unless proven guilty. His attorneys can challenge identification, interpretation, account ownership, witness credibility, the meaning of financial messages, and whether the government can establish each element of each charge beyond a reasonable doubt. That process matters more than any viral headline, but the stakes described in the source are severe. The federal indictment reportedly includes kidnapping-related and extortion-related allegations, and the potential penalties attached to serious federal kidnapping offenses can be enormous depending on what is ultimately proven. Then another twist brought the story back into music. According to the source, Gucci Mane eventually responded artistically with a track titled Crash Dummy. The title alone turned the nickname attached to Baby Slime into a larger commentary about loyalty, hierarchy, and who absorbs the consequences when things collapse. That is what makes the final chapter bigger than the allegations inside one Dallas studio. A business dispute allegedly became a criminal case. A private message became federal evidence. Social media posts allegedly became investigative exhibits. And a young associate who was described as being eager to prove his loyalty ended up in a position where prosecutors say the cost could follow him for years. The remaining question is not simply what prosecutors can prove. It is why so many young people confuse taking the greatest risk with showing the greatest loyalty, and who benefits when someone else becomes the person standing closest to the consequences. Crash, dummy loyalty, risk, and consequences. The most important question in this story is no longer who looked toughest inside a recording studio. It is who ultimately carried the consequences when everything allegedly fell apart. According to the source narrative, what started as frustration over a record deal eventually became a federal case involving Pooh Shiesty, Gucci Mane, Baby Slime, digital messages, witnesses, video evidence, firearms allegations, and decisions prosecutors say were preserved almost step by step. None of those accusations should be confused with a conviction, and every defendant retains the right to challenge the government's case. But even before a jury determines what can actually be proven, there is already a larger lesson sitting underneath the allegations. Loyalty without judgment can become self-destruction. The crash dummy label matters because it describes a dangerous imbalance. One person proves loyalty by taking the most visible risk, while somebody higher in the hierarchy may receive the greater benefit, according to the source. Prosecutors allege Baby Slime responded quickly to the Dallas request, traveled with the group, and later occupied one of the most exposed positions in their version of what happened. If that account is proven, the difference between the reward and the potential cost could not be more dramatic. A few $1,000s can disappear in days. A federal sentence can consume years of a life. And that is where Gucci Mane's reported artistic response, Crash Dummy, becomes more than another rap record in the story. The title turns the entire situation into a question about hierarchy. When loyalty is tested, who is actually being protected and who is being sacrificed? There's another strategic lesson here for artists. Contract disputes belong in negotiation rooms, attorneys' offices, mediation, and courts. Music careers are businesses worth protecting. Anger may last an hour, but a decision made during that hour can threaten everything built over a decade. Social media makes that problem worse. Messages remain searchable. Photos remain recoverable. Videos can become exhibits. Showing off for an audience may feel temporary, but digital records can last far longer than the moment that created them. And for fans, we should be able to discuss hip-hop drama without treating real incarceration, injuries, or ruined futures like trophies. Nobody wins when young artists and their friends trade years of freedom for a reputation that the internet forgets when the next story arrives. So what do you think is the biggest lesson here? If you believe blind loyalty creates the biggest danger, come on, If you believe ego and social media turn bad decisions into permanent consequences, come on, dude. And if you want more deep rap stories like this, subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. Share this video with another hip-hop fan. And drop your city or state in the comments. Because sometimes the smartest move in the street, the studio, and the music business is knowing when proving yourself is not worth losing yourself.